He shouted his support against the short sellers by tweeting Gamestonk.
Man, you try to turn in something, they might give you 45 cents for a first edition Super Mario Brothers 3,
To $48 million.
Bam.
I mean, look, yeah. Yeah, he pocketed some kitty litter. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Show versus Business, your weekly take on pop culture from two very different perspectives. I'm your host, Theo, and on the line, I once again have the main man himself, Mr. Benja. What is up, man?
We have made it through January, my friend. Oh my God. We're now moving on into the next phase of 2021, and things are still crazy. We got to talk about it.
Oh, it's a lot going on. But so today, I think we'll talk a little bit about GME, which is short for Gamestop. If you didn't know what that meant, I think the whole world knows what that means. But GME Gone Wild, Batman Week. We'll talk a little bit about that in reference to DC Infinite and what they're doing over there in the DC world. And then finally, we'll do a quick Wandavision check-in. So that's our agenda for today. But before we get into all that, how was your week, Ben?
I like to really get my ideas and thoughts together for the week, for the month, for the year. I'm big on New Year's resolutions and all that jazz. So February, it's about to be some things happening. So I don't want to say too much about it now, but everybody stay tuned, and we got some things coming down the line.
Got some things coming down the line. Love it, man. I love it. So I guess tomorrow is officially Black History Month, right? So I think we gotta, do some shout outs. So definitely may, do that during the next week, but next month. But I think this week for me was pretty interesting. Just a lot of work, heads down, just meeting new clients and stuff like that for the business side. But just excited about the news. What's happening in the world today. So you ready to get into it today?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Great. Well, hey, so everyone, the big news was GameStop. There's a little blurb around what happened. So basically, back in July, GameStop was widely considered a old brick and mortar retailer from a bygone time, battling to survive in a new e-commerce driven world. You could buy a share at that time for about less than $4. But then in August, a 34-year-old financial advisor from Massachusetts, going under the name of Warren Kitty on YouTube, posted a video on YouTube highlighting a stock market opportunity. He said that basically hedge funds were what they call doing short positions in GameStop, so huge that it made the opportunity for folks to get in if they could do what they called a short squeeze. So beyond getting into any of that, so basically if they flooded the market with a bunch of buyers, they could potentially drive the stock up, which will cause the short sellers to want to have to buy so they wouldn't lose even more money. And then eventually, and because there's more buyers and buyers on top of buyers, supply and demand, you get the price going up. This was driven by, basically through Reddit, and you had many members of this new community called Wall Street Bets seized on the opportunity and bought up GameShare stock, excuse me. And by the end of the year, GME had climbed to about nearly $20. Over the last 10 days, it started to go past 60, then 100, 200. And I think right before, other things happened, it was around $480. And that gentleman, Warren Kitty, said his initial investment of $53,000 had ballooned to $48 million.
Bam.
I mean, look, yeah, yeah, he pocketed some kitty litter. So I think what happened next is really the stuff of legend. So during this period of time, and this all happened last week, I think a lot of folks know about this. Hedge funds that were among the biggest GameStop shorts, such as Melvin Capital Management and Citron Research, found themselves spending hundreds of $1 millions to cover their positions. So they lost money.
Okay, so
Elon Musk,
real quick, I want to jump in there because I was
Sure.
talking with a friend of mine, and he was trying to figure out what was going on. Like, this is not your normal stock trade. Shorts are something that other stock traders do, but it's not your traditional stock trade. It's basically usually when you think of buying into a stock, you're going to buy it and there's a downside. If the value goes to zero, you just lost whatever money you put in. But this is kind of the reverse of that, where there's people buy in, like these hedge fund guys. They put their money in, and you have a problem where if the price goes up, then they have to pay back that amount, which is what we call the short squeeze. But I guess you're dealing with the situation here where there is potentially an infinite downside. It's not like zero and you bottom out. It's like if everybody keeps fueling this fire, it just keeps getting bigger, which means worse for the hedge fund guys. So, yeah, like you're talking about with Melvin Capital and Citron, hundreds of millions to cover their positions. That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, look, what they do is basically borrow the stock, right? And they say, hey, give me 100 stock shares, right? So they don't have the money to buy it. They just buy it. And then they just say, hey, I'll give it back to you on the premise that, the stock price goes lower. They can buy it back. And then they return the money back and the stocks back to the people they borrow from. So basically they buy high and sell low, right? So they can make the difference on the money. And like you said, what happens if the price keeps going up higher and higher instead of going lower and lower, they have to, oh crap, I got to cover my position because I will no longer have the cash to pay back the initial stock I borrowed. So it's kind of like, one of those things that they have to kind of, cover their positions. So no, thanks you for explaining that. I think that's a great point. And I think, but what added fuel to this fire was like Elon Musk and some other billionaires, joined the fray and which we'll talk about this, that could be perceived as market manipulation, which Elon Musk has done before. He shouted his support against the short sellers by tweeting Gamestonk, Stonk, not Stock, Game Stonk.
Oh,
Yeah, just being cute with the word. And basically that fuel that put, gasoline on the fire and, we got a leader. And so everybody kept buying. But then what happened was Thursday morning, Robinhood, which is basically one of those kind of new stock apps that was created. And Robinhood, take from the rich, give to the poor, basically it made it easy to not only buy stocks, but do these risky option plays called puts and calls. And so basically, they started halting anyone from buying any more GameStop. And, people got pissed. I mean, so this really got people up in arms because their whole premise was you got to keep buying so the stock can keep going higher and the shorts have to kind of keep covering their position. And then, it was weird when you had like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ted Cruz, two people on the exact opposite of political spectrum, joined forces like the Wonder Twins and condemned Robinhood. And then I think next up we're probably gonna have the regulars looking into who to point blame at, right? Because this is not gonna end well, right? I mean, I think the last I checked it was like in the 200s, I think, and Robinhood is slowly allowing people to start buying back in. But I mean, it's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of different angles we can take on this. So I mean, we have a debate question that we can kind of discuss, but I don't know. Do you have any other things you want to talk about? Just what happened this week, the craziness?
well, it's just an interesting point in time, and I even saw the hashtag Occupy Wall Street 2021 going around on Twitter. It's uh, it's just fascinating now that we've kind of become used to the idea that, yeah, the Wall Street guys, the hedge fund guys, the big money guys are going to win, and suddenly they fuck up, and now it's like, well, are we going to let them screw up, or are we going to back the little guy? And, as you said, Robinhood, a company that's supposed to, or at least sounds like it's for the little guy, pulls the support. And they're like, well, hold on now. These guys were gambling, but we didn't think they would lose this bad. So now people are starting to wonder if what they did, Robinhood, if what Robinhood did was criminal. Um, is what Elon Musk did, criminal. Um, there are even people in like the Reddit forums. It's like, well, can we take a complete group of Redditors and say that they were colluding to manipulate the stock price? It's getting real interesting in there. So, um, people who are wondering, this is, companies move based on their stock price and their, stockholders. So this does change how these companies are going to behave in the future, and it could have really big repercussions.
No, you nailed it. This gonna be second, third, and fourth orders to this, right? Because you got to think now that the short sellers are aware that this could happen. They're probably gonna change their strategies, right? I think a lot of that stuff was like public knowledge to see what stocks they were shorting. I don't think that's gonna be public anymore because they see this could happen, right? And especially they were doing things that was very risky. They basically were able to short. I think it was over 100%. It was like 136% that, which is more than the stocks that were available. So basically, people were shorting stocks that didn't even exist. And so it's like, how could you do that? And the rules allow them to do that as these big time investors. And so we're going to see a lot of rule changes from this. And then, like you said, market manipulation. I mean, what they call pump and dump has been around forever. I mean, back in 2017,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
you
love that
remember
name.
pump and
That
dump,
just
right?
sounds so dirty.
It does because it is. I mean, and you remember the Bitcoin craze, right? It's very similar. People, hey, and we'll talk about that. When you see things like Bitcoin and Dogecoin, which is basically a meme coin,
Yeah.
on as went through the roof. You see people get crazy about things like this, and they dump it, and I mean, they hype everyone up because they're influencers, and then they like, okay, let me go sell my shares now, right? Because I made a bunch of money.
Yeah, that's the point that's the part that kind of gets me is, now that it's become a media storm, I'm not going to tell people get in while it's good, because by the time you hear about it and you think it's good, and you've gotten your money together to do something, it could possibly, and most very likely, be too late. I will never give stock advice here. I was in the stock game and did happy for quite a while. Haven't gotten back into it in a couple years, but it's just really, you're starting to see what people are playing with and who's getting played and who are the players.
No, agreed. Yeah, I definitely, yeah, full disclosure. I mean, AMC was another one that was selected as a target by these Redditors. And I did purchase a couple of shares of AMC just to see what happens. And it went up modestly for us. But, like I said, who knows what's going to happen now that AMC, I think it was Bed Bath and Beyond. There's a couple other stocks, BlackBerry, that they're targeting to kind of see who else they can go after the short sellers. But I'll be honest with you, I think the cat's out the bag, and this strategy may be DOA now. And so,
So
you know,
let me ask a question then. Who is the, I mean, is there a bad guy in this situation? Or is it just like someone's got to step in and say, okay, this is out of control. We're going to put new rules in place? Because I don't know who's bad, the guy who's gambling that a company is going to fail and pushing it down, or the people who are like, we can stop you and probably screw up your hedge fund. I don't know if there's a bad guy here.
I agree. It's hard to say. I mean, because if you think about it, retail investors, have for a long time said, we want protections, and there's, stock market wasn't as easy. I mean, a lot of millennials take it for granted that you can do stock trades for free. That wasn't always the case. You remember,
Mm-hmm.
it was like every time you traded, it was money. Now you can do things like free trade, and then this apps, they're so easy to trade stuff. I mean, if you ever play with Robinhood, you make a trade, they do look confetti, like, congratulations, you did something great. And so it's like, they really make it simple and easy for these retail investors. So in their mind, they're like, well, look, we want to take advantage. We're sitting around waiting for these stimulus checks. Let us, go through that pain. We know what we have to risk. But then the challenge is if they do get hurt, they're going to complain, and then the regulars have to step in and change rules because that's what usually happens. So it's kind of like, on one hand, the people who made money and they say, look, we understand what we're doing. We're okay. But then there's going to be a lot of people who are going to get hurt, like you said, especially if you bought into like $300 a GameStop. That's a risky bet. I mean, because I heard people were talking about it's going away all the way to 1,000. And that's we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. I don't think that's going to happen personally, but like you said, we don't give stock advice on this podcast. But it's just, I mean, there's just so many angles on this. And real quick, one thing I did want to say too. I mean, people think Robinhood, even before that, now everybody's for Robinhood's head and all that because of they stopped the buying GameStop. But look, before this, why they had free trades, right?
Talk to me.
Basically, yeah. they were basically getting money because they generate significant income for what they call payments for order flow.
Mm.
So basically, this is basically a practice where they're able to allow these big investment firms understanding of where these retail investors are investing in, and they can use their high speed computers to invest in the momentum. So basically, they see GameStop going up. They already told these big time investors, go ahead and invest in GameStop because we see it going up through the roof. So I guarantee, this media play, they're saying this little guy gets the big guy. I don't think that's what's really happening. I think what happened, the little guys got in, they understand what was happening, and it made sense. But there were also other big guys who kind of masked themselves as little guys and say, "Hey, yeah, yeah, look, go buy GameStop," because they were in on it too because they saw it. I mean, GameStop already gave them the play of what was happening. So anybody who got that order flow from Robinhood, they probably already bet on this and made a huge amount of money. They're just not saying that. But because the media story is about the little guy versus the big guy, of course they're going to say, this is all it is. But I guarantee there's a lot of other big investors that are making a ton of money off of this, right? So anyway, so that's just something people don't realize. I mean, yeah, they're mad at Robinhood before of this right now because they stopped it, but even before they were already helping the big guy. So don't get it twisted.
Yeah. And to your, to the debate question that was posed, all this stuff is going on in the stock world, and there are still people out there who are wondering about, a lot of their favorite brands, a lot of their favorite institutions, like AMC, like GameStop. It's like, what happens to them? Um, are they just kind of getting pulled along in this madness? And in a situation like this, you know, you've got this quick influx of cash that they could do something with. Um, so GameStop, it's like, well, shit, you kind of screwed up, and things are going, south in terms of the physical, game trade, and people know GameStop wasn't. Man, you try to turn in something, they might give you 45 cents for a, first edition Super Mario Brothers 3, and say it's fair, $2 in in-store credit. Um, so we're not we're not like all behind them on that front. But with a company like GameStop, maybe they could use the money right. Maybe they could start switching over into digital. I know they tried to before, but a lot of the old heads or just the old ways in the company made it difficult. But now your back's up against the wall. Maybe we could see something good happen.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, yeah, I think we're going to debate today around what's happening in GameStop. Is this a good thing, right, for the industry, for GameStop? So you're saying yes, right? If they, use the money correctly and take advantage of this moment, right? I disagree. I think this is terrible. I mean, this reminds me. This is a stock bubble. I mean, we're going to see massive losses across the board. I mean, no stock advice, but if you have stock positions, I would really consider taking them out because I think this reminds me of 2008, or 7 when people were all in real estate. Oh yeah, you make all this money in real estate and flip houses and sell and rent and all this stuff. And this reminds me of 2000 when they had pets.com had a Super Bowl commercial, right? They were like,
Oh,
pets.com. You had a .com behind your name. As a matter of fact, Ben, I think we were in college around that period of time, right? Netscape came out and everybody was hype about the internet. You just put a .com behind your name and you can make billions.
yeah.
And so it's like, the advantage of being a little older is like you see the same cycles over and over again. So I think, we're probably going to see a massive pull down in the stock market. It's just very overheated. When you got average Joes, talking about the barbershop or just any, whenever that happens, that means there's too much going on in the market. And people are going to start saying, you know what, let me just sit this out. And you're going to start seeing massive pullbacks. So that's my opinion. I don't know if this is a good thing.
Yeah, that's obviously the other side of it. I'm usually not a fan of a lot of the stock market nonsense. Um, so these companies with GameStop and AMC in particular, I'm talking about. I'm just like everybody else. Take this chance, try to go digital, switch your format up. All these AMC theaters start making them a little more into event centers or socially distanced you know uh, eateries or something. Start making some change somewhere. Let the shareholders and the people who are into your brand know what you're trying. Um, and but it's extremely hard talking to the guys on the board who are like, make everything the way it was and make money again, and they start shaking their fist at the guys who are trying to create something. So I get their reluctance to really go shout out, hey, we're making these great changes. It's hard.
Hmm. You know what? We talked about this. I don't know if you remember before, right when the pandemic began. We talked about like what's going to happen to movie theaters, and is this really going to change them? And so AMC, to your point, I think they are selling like about $44 million of stock now that their stock is like basically, went up 300%. It was like at a couple dollars, now it's up to like $12, and so, there are, looking at buying debt, and so I hope they innovate. I think we had talked about that. I don't know if you remember, we had a long conversation on the phone call. We talked about like, can we do something with, theaters, or do something different in that space, or, because we just knew, theaters are, maybe dead.
Yeah, I made that call. I think I said definitely AMC is dead right now. It's so hard to get these institutions to move unless something drastic happens. And basically, you've got guys holding on to money, and they're going to let a lot of other people die before they change their ways, before they take a new risk. So, that part's annoying to me. And I'm like, come on, guys, just try something new. You'll probably get a, and hey, you've got a new class of investor now, the Reddit investor. So maybe you can garner up enough influence to say, hey, we're going to try X, Y, and Z. We're going to close down all these stores. We're going to start physically and digitally trying something new. So I'm hopeful for the future. And as I said, if they use their money right, it's not going to be everybody across the board. You're just going to be looking for one or two companies that are really out there trying to make change. Shout out to Ty Lopez for buying Pier One.
Technically, did he buy Pier One? Do we really know that?
He owns Pier One as the name. There's a
Okay, yeah,
different group
okay.
of people that own Pier One. It's Pier One, Radio Shack, Steinmart, and a couple others, and they're all slightly different in their deals. But basically, he's buying the brand name and looking at their company, saying, "Oh, you've got 300 people devoted to web work. I'm basically going to replace that with 30 people who know what they're doing, and try to revive this brand, the brand, not the brick and mortar stores. I'm going to try to revive the brand in a digital sense." So he's out there trying to make different ideas happen. So we'll see how that works out.
I mean, a couple things came to mind. GameStop. One of the reasons why there were some people who were optimistic about it, because they did bring on one of the internet guys, the CEO and co-founder of Chewy. He came on board the board for GameStop, and was hoping to revitalize them too with new ideas and innovation. So to your point, there is some thought around that, and then this is nostalgia brand play, right? I mean, another influencer you and I both follow, Gary Vee. He's spoken about that as well, that he wants to buy these legacy brands, right? These old school brands that we grew up on, right? And take them and do something different with them. Because I think the thing, he made a good point, is like the big thing around now is because there's so much information, so much thoughts and stuff. The only thing you gotta drive is attention. And how do you get attention? You gotta tap into something else. And nostalgia seems to be the biggest play people want to tap into, because that brings back memories, and then people pay attention to things like that, right? In their youth and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, you brought up Ty Lopez, but GameStop, I think, ties into that, right? You're right. That, because I think we all remember, Christmas morning getting games, and or buying games for your brother or sister or cousin, and going to GameStop, and they're getting so excited. I think you're right. The experience may have been bad when they try to return a game, but but and being pissed off, and so that's why they said we got to do something different.
Yeah, speaking of
But
pissed off, man, why did they all smell like that? I'm just saying.
I literally went to GameStop to go pick up something for my son, And yeah, the experience was not good. I stood in line forever. I mean, and they said, well, you got to do this, you got to do that. I was like, well, can I return this back? Well, you can buy some insurance if you do this. I'm like, oh man, just give me a game. So it was not a fun experience. You're right. I mean, you're right. I mean, and personally, like I said, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, there's some opportunities. You're right. If they are smart and these Redditors are going to put, really think about this from a business standpoint, say, look, all you guys want to buy GameStop stock. Well, why don't you guys figure out, come help us, revitalize the brand and really kind of, leverage that army toward that. But I'll be honest with you, I mean, it may be just a school of fish that just following the trend. And as soon as they make their little numbers, they're going to get out. And so it's not like they're really following, what this stock is doing or this company is doing.
Quick aside, you definitely brought up a good point. With the nostalgia effect and everything. Steam, the guys who they have their platform that allows you to download games and play them, and it's a whole little ecosystem for your game library, basically your digital game library. So they make a mad amount of money, but now they're being targeted for possibly what do you call it, when the competitor, you try to keep the competitor out. What's the word I'm searching for? Basically, they're not
hostile takeover. Hostile takeover.
No. You're not trying to set up a monopoly, but you're basically encouraging people not to jump in the business with their pricing practices. They make deals that say, hey, if you want to get on Steam and operate on our platform, you have to make sure that your game is priced the same here as it is elsewhere. But
creating a barrier to entry into the industry, and so by increasing these pricing to even start it. So I get it.
Yeah, so other companies want to get in. They can't battle on price. And when you're in a digital arena, how much are you battling on aside from price? And there's no delivery to work to differentiate you. Like you just pretty much download. It's not like you're talking about Amazon versus Walmart.com or whatever. It's a digital platform, so now you've kept everybody out. So I say that to bring up the fact that a company like GameStop, what if they came in as a digital distribution center for video games? If anybody takes this idea and runs with it, send me a check. But the brand name of GameStop, and people who don't use Steam already, because there are still many people who don't know what Steam is about, because it's primarily a PC thing. But if you could get something like GameStop going on, like you do with your Roku TVs or whatever, and a little GameStop icon showed up, that's the brand leverage there is awesome. People would just be like, oh yeah, I get to get my digital games through GameStop and da da da. So, things can happen. But from what I can tell, the GameStop guys aren't going to do it.
Great. You came to my side of the thinking. Okay.
Well, somebody
business has won.
Somebody should use the money right, not necessarily GameStop.
Yeah, there's some people who are making money on GameStop and they're using to pay off debt. So good for them. So now will they buy games? No, but they will buy, pay off debts. So good stuff. Now that was a great topic. So let's move along. So I think we want to talk a little bit about DC Infinite, right? And what's DC doing right now, Ben? I mean, what's your thoughts on DC world right now?
Oh, DC, it's my favorite time of year, Black History Month. And we called it Black Batman Week because for the first time ever, you've got like in the comics world, you've got a new Black Batman that's been revealed. DC Comics officially revealed the identity of their new Black Batman, and he's going to debut in a comic called Future State: The Next Batman. So this guy is Tim Fox, son of Lucius Fox, Lucius Fox was Morgan Freeman in the movies. So, it's already a black character there. So there's a reason to have this Black Batman, but it's just funny to me. And also we've got Batwoman that just debuted on the CW. And it's picking up a couple fans here and there. but it's part of the. I don't know if this counts as part of the woke crowd or not, but I don't even know if I want to go down that route. But yeah, you've got a you know, black Batwoman and a black Batman. Have to say it slowly. So
It's
interesting.
like a tongue twister. It's a tongue twister, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you think DC's going with all this? This is interesting.
So yeah, what I think we're seeing is, you know, DC is definitely more open to try interesting things than Marvel. And that's one of the reasons I mess with DC, because they're always trying something new, weird, and interesting. Doesn't always work out, but you've got a lot of interesting things that they try. So they used to have their service, DC Universe, which was their streaming video service, but it also had comics involved. So now they split those into two, and we've got DC, most DC streaming properties on HBO Max, and DC Infinite is where people get their comics. So how does this change the delivery for DC Comics? Well, basically, you're getting people much more access into the comics world, which is where a lot of these stories develop. In fact, you can call it a farm league for comic stories, because it starts somewhere in some comic. If the idea does well, they repeat it in some other comics. It may never stick. It may never continue after a few months of a run or whatever. But people who read comics understand. It's like, yeah, we get it. It's in the comics. It may not be, what movie people would call canon. It's just going to happen. We'll try some things out. We'll see if it bubbles up to TV. We'll see if it bubbles up to your streaming services. We'll see if it bubbles up to a full feature. So on that end, I think DC Infinite's pretty interesting, because when I was on Universe, the stuff they were trying out was pretty engaging, actually. Comic would drop. You'd have people commenting on it. It was like a social media for their comic brand. So pretty interesting stuff. I don't know if you've ever had any digital comic experience there, Theo.
Oh yeah, I do. I love it. I mean, I still like to support my local comic book place.
Wait, brick and mortar.
Because yeah, brick and mortar. I mean, just someone to talk to about this stuff. I mean, that's always fun. It brings back the memory of college and late nights. You talking crap with your buddies. But I think I mean, be honest with you, a lot of my digital stuff I just buy. Just be like, oh, let me just buy this real quick because I just want to read it, or because sometimes the digital releases are not day and date, so you gotta like wait a week or something like that. I don't know if this DC Infinite will have the same thing. Like once it's released into the stores, you can purchase it. I mean, you can watch it or listen. I think it probably is, right? Because I think it's going to be a fee, right, for DC Infinite. Is that correct? Do you
Yes.
know? Okay, yeah. So that's kind of but it's kind of interesting from a business perspective. So there's kind of a lot of different things I was thinking about. So one thing, right? So they're kind of using this and I think Marvel's kind of doing the same thing, and we'll get into that maybe we'll talk a little bit about WandaVision. But this kind of there's a concept called test and experimentation, R&D. So they're using comic books as R&D to see what ideas stick. I mean, and come to fruition. DC is interesting. They do a lot. You're right. They do a lot of different things. And I think they also in their animation division, they created Harley Quinn, and she became a force of nature in the comics, and then eventually came back to the movies. So it's kind of interesting how they always create these characters, and they're trying to figure out what character is going to pop, right? And so you're right. In comics, they can do a lot faster, right? They can just come up with some. Oh yeah, so now the Joker has a new girlfriend, and her name is Punchline. I'm like, oh crap, what is this? The old girlfriend wasn't enough. Harley Quinn got a groove back, right? So she got kicked to the curb. So Joker had to get a new one. So I guess so. Anyway, so it's kind of interesting to see how this plays out. And then the other business aspect of this is how they originally, like you said, DC Universe was like, hey, this is all the folks that are doing the they're doing the DC Universe is supposed to have video as well as have comics. And now because HBO Max, they had to take all the video content out. So okay, DC Infinite is only for comic books. So it's kind of interesting how they kind of deflated the value prop of this kind of streaming opportunity. So it is what it is, but it's kind of like, okay, DC, I don't know if I trust you, right, as a consumer, because who knows what you're going to do next, right? Because you're beholden to the motherlord that is Warner. So it's going to be
Yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
see.
Yeah, man. Facebook keeps hitting me with those, subscribe to DC Infinite Now ads, and I'm like, man, they on me, man. They on if they on me, they on other people too. So we'll see how it works out.
Weren't you early subscriber, early adopter of DC Universe?
Oh yeah, man. I jumped in DC Universe. I was watching Titans, watching Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing. All three have pretty high value to me, and I was like, oh shucks. Um, people talk about weird shows and aren't checking out Doom Patrol. I don't know who you're talking to, man. You missing.
Yeah, I saw that tweet. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I saw bits and pieces of Doom Patrol. Definitely weird, very, very out there. But it's interesting, definitely different. I haven't watched Swamp Thing and Teen Titans. I don't know, man. They took me out
Okay,
when Robin.
that if you don't watch that, I'm okay with it. I understand. I totally get it.
You know the moment that took me out when we saw the trailer and Robin looking pissed as hell.
I'm
Fuck Batman. What?
yeah.
Man, tear this trash off, man. I want to see Robin over here cussing out Batman. Calm that down, man. So anyway, but I heard it got better though. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Titans?
So the entire first season was basically supposed to be a launching board for their new style of show. And they were, I don't want to say copying because that's really not the right word, but um, they were in competition with, Netflix's Marvel uh, offerings at the time. So Netflix, they had the Defenders basically. You had Luke Cage, Punisher, Daredevil, and Jessica Jones, who were really a different set of ideas. Where it's like, oh shucks, we can curse, we can kill, we can do all this stuff, and it's just going to be rugged and raw with Marvel. And Netflix did that. So Titans was like, well, we're on a new service.
What was it? Marvel Uncut. Remember Uncut videos back in the day?
Oh man,
Late
yeah,
at night.
yeah, yeah. They have a couple comic lines too. Marvel Max and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, DC was doing its thing over on Universe and was like, okay, Titans is going to be the thing that sets all this off. It wasn't really meant. It wasn't really meant to be good, um, but it was just meant to set everything up. And when the entire season is set up, it's like, is this really good? Or hey, it's the Red Hoods. Or oh god, I want to turn this off. And hey, they brought in such and such. And it wasn't just random appearances. It was total setup for like, no, 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 you should go watch this show, and this show is coming up next, and this is going to be a different character. After the first season, it definitely got better. Um, and I think actually your idea of Superboy hasn't really been realized until you've watched season 2, where Superboy shows up. It's really interesting how he plays out. I dug it.
Okay,
But
spoiler. Yeah, we might think I might did check it out. Maybe we'll come circle back around to check it out. So you watch both. They only have 2 seasons out. Is that what you recommend?
yeah, first season is like CW with the random titty and a curse word here and there, to make it edgy. Season 2 is much more.
Hey, hold on. What's wrong with random titty? Come
No,
on.
hey,
Hey, Game of Thrones did the same thing.
I'm
Have
just saying
tits and dragons,
you're
tits and
watching it,
dragons.
and all of a sudden something happens, and you're like, oh, right, it is adults only or whatever. It's kind of a weird flex because it's like they had the old style CW developers, and then some guy with the scruffy beard and a Harley Davidson shirt comes in and it's like, yeah, ma, come in and add some shooting, shoot him in the face. Well, we're just gonna punch him and tie him up. It's like, nah, bitch, kill him. This I'm the new
Right,
writer
right.
here.
I don't know if you watched that Netflix show Bridgerton yet.
No,
It's very similar. I mean, basically, you start watching. Was it Downton Abbey? Right? Oh, this is a period piece. Everybody's good, and then it gets into like some X-rated stuff. I'm like, well, I think everybody was thrown aback by that. Right? To your point, it's like someone came in and said, "Oh, yeah, let's throw something in here. A little sex scene in here." Like they're like, "What? What's that about?" And it's like, you watching like you porn or something like that.
yeah,
Man. It's like crazy. So anyway, I think this is what we have to think through, man, with all these different changes in streaming services, man. And I think the challenge with streaming services too. Sometimes I think their stories are too long, and it's like a lot of setup, right? Like you said, the first season they were setting up different characters, different options, and it's like, man, what is going on, man? So, and like in the first couple episodes, typically are not good. So, I'm going to transition here into WandaVision.
Just not good.
Yeah, it's not good. I'm gonna transition into WandaVision, right? This is episode 4, WandaVision. Does it get good in your mind here in episode 4?
So everybody wants a universe, man. Everybody wants their universe and their phases and their, 12-month build up to a 2-part feature film. Hashtag Endgame. Um, and so we're seeing the next phase of Marvel play out in WandaVision. There's so many people arguing online on whether it's good or not, and I'm not sure that's the right question. They're do you like what they're doing or not? Sure, that's your perspective on how the show is playing out. I'm fine if you like it. I'm fine if you don't like it or whatever. But I think we're definitely witnessing an intentional move to say we are going to sit down and set something up instead of playing out a story that you enjoy while you watch it. So 4 episodes in, out of a 9-episode season, and not much in terms of a classic story has actually happened. So when I say classic story, I'm talking about hero shows up, hero's faced with the problem, hero accepts the challenge, hero goes on an adventure, hero learns new skills, hero faces off with the bad guy, hero figures out what he really needs to change, the changed hero conquers all, end of story. That's basically your hero's journey that you're going to look up. This is not that. So that's where the rub starts to happen, I think, with a lot of people. Classic story versus, hey, let me front load this thing with all these references. Let me do all this quote unquote character development, Easter eggs, these other entertaining factors. They're definitely entertaining. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying it goes away from the classic definition of quote unquote story. It's evolving the story. How's that? I don't want to say people don't like story, but the story's evolving. So this is what we're witnessing. 4 episodes into WandaVision, a 9-episode season, and it's not as story-wise, classically, as we've come to expect. So
No. I mean, you kind of hinted at with Titans. You said all first season was set up, right? I mean, yeah, there was some cool things and some Easter eggs here, but I think this is very similar, right? I mean, there's some cool things, Easter eggs. I mean, I think it was okay. We can spoil it. I mean, it's out there in the zeitgeist. They actually did something unique where they kind of pulled back the curtain and looked at it from like the other side, right? What was happening on the outside world. And it looks like they went back and they showed like how everything progressed. And they introduced the great character, Monica Rambeau, who is a Marvel superhero that most people don't even know about. I mean, I guess if you watch Captain Marvel, they kind of introduced her mom a little bit, but this is a great, superhero character. And there's a shout out to Blurred Without Fear. He does a great job of communicating exactly what, Monica Rambeau is about and her power, opportunities and what she can do. But anyway, it's a great character. But I think they introduce her and her backstory, and then they introduce all these these other characters that we've seen in other Marvel movies, like, from Ant-Man, the FBI agent. Oh man, I'm so bad, I forgot his name right now. And then the Kat Dennings is the actress that played in Thor. She was one of the scientists in Thor, right? Thor 1 and 2. And so, like, now they're putting all these lack of a better word, randos from different movies into this, into this movie, into this TV show, and trying to, like, like you said, fill up the backstory and tell all these, more complete stories. And you're right, it's like very interesting. And I think also it's not classically like a story, because I think what they're revealing is the bad guy is really Wanda, right? She's the one that's doing all this, which I think everybody kind of already gathered and knew, but
Yeah.
I think they're just really kind of putting it out there. I mean, obviously, when Monica Rambeau says she's 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 the it's Wanda, so it's like, okay, sure, we put that button on it, right?
Yeah. So here's where we get into, what are we actually talking about when we say spoiler? Um, the fact that we don't know what a spoiler exactly is in this new era should key us off to, you know, um, that we're dealing with something completely new. For example, if you're watching Star Wars, okay, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back, you know, when you say, Luke, I am your father, it's like, holy crap, and people start losing their shit, because a piece of the story, can we come up with another word for story here? I don't know. So a piece of the plot was revealed that really changes things. So now, if you're supposed to go back and watch, and that changed the context for Star Wars, that changed the context for Empire Strikes Back, and that's a spoiler because the experience was spoiled. Now, if you just tell me that, you know, hey, that chick from Thor, she shows up. Oh, why'd you spoil it? That that says nothing. That says nothing of the actual story. That says nothing of what actually happens, what she means. Because as far as the the hero's journey is concerned, her appearance means nothing. In fact,
Hmm.
they used to put on posters like, "Hey, this character is showing up. Um, make sure you watch to see what happens." And it would still
Hmm.
be a spoiler in terms of why he was there, why she did X, Y, and Z. So now, you talk about spoilers. I honestly don't know what you can spoil about WandaVision. I mean, you can reveal that uh, somebody's watching her, but they did that in the first episode.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I,
Well,
I don't know. I'm confused. I don't know. I'm lost.
so what spoilers? That's a good debate topic. What spoilers, what's not in this new world. I mean, there's a lot of things, changing things around this because of the nature of streaming shows anywhere, right? You watch it whenever you want to watch. There's no like it's coming on every day at 9 p.m. on HBO. So it's kind of or every Sunday at 9 p.m. on HBO, like Game of Thrones. So there's no really set time people watch this. Some people watch it at 3 a.m. on Friday morning, right? When it first comes out. And then they put their releases and their reviews out there. So no, I agree 100%. It's a very interesting show. I mean, I did like the fact that, I mean, basically they just did everything we saw, but just like, from a different perspective. And I do like that aspect of it, because, I think great storytelling is just, matter of point of view, right? There's a great book I read years ago. It was Ender's Game. Great book, sci-fi book. Orson Scott Card wrote this book about this young genius. He was set up to defend the human race against alien invasion, but he didn't ever knew it, and so they kind of showed him growing up and going through that process. At the time, his best friend was named Bean, and Bean was like the shortest kid in the bunch, but he was also smart, and he was also his like lieutenant. So what they did was they did another story, another book, and they did it from Bean's perspective, and it
Hmm.
was a totally different book, and you saw the same actions and things in that book from the first book, but from a different perspective. And I love storytelling like that because to me, that's because everything is about matter of perspective, right? I'm the villain. I'm the hero and the villain in my own story, but then someone sees me as the villain, right, in their story. So to me, that is very compelling. So I think that's interesting. But I agree with you, right? When you say, how does it have any bearing on the storytelling? Does it, and I think that the key to that is like, is there something they reveal that changes how you perceive that whole movie or whole episode or whatever, right? And I think that's a better way to think about it, right? Do we want things that change our perspective? Like, for instance, I just saw a movie, the Denzel Washington movie, The Little Things, on HBO Max, and they have something like that where they reveal something and it changes your whole perspective on how you see that movie. So I don't know if that's a spoiler because I'm revealing that, but okay, well, good thing would be like I know another good movie. Everybody's seen, spoiler alert, for a movie that came out nearly 20 years ago, but The Sixth Sense, right? Remember?
Yeah.
Once you find out what happens to Bruce Willis, now oh crap, I gotta go watch this movie again. Did they what did they really, say he was, did they really adhere to that he was a ghost?
Yeah.
And you watch it and they do, right? And they show different things. And they got cold when he was around. The everything around him when he got angry got red. So it was kind of like, things like that is like, well, to me, I think you're right, is a more thorough way of revealing story. But also I think change of point of view, right? Different perspectives, it helps a story as well, but it's not as powerful as you say when you reveal something that changes your perspective of the whole story.
Yeah, it was kind of jarring. This episode 4 switch, everybody assumed, including me, that they were going to go into the family ties kind of thing for the 80s. We did the first episode 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, then started to get into the 80s, and we were figuring that, okay, we've seen the trailer, let's see some more of this, you know, period piece kind of thing, and you got none of that. And it was actually kind of jarring. I'm watching it like, why are the camera angles so modern?
Actually, I mean, I don't think I think from a pacing standpoint, they probably knew they couldn't do another kind of one off. I mean, they're not one off, but they kind of are, right? The vast majority of the story, the A plot, is really something that's tantamount to something that you watch in those shows. So they knew they kind of step back and kind of give you a bigger perspective before they kind of continue on. But I agree, it's interesting. I mean, so we talked about this, right? This is what WandaVision does. It brings out, people talking about it more so than really, you know, saying, hey, how's the show plotting wise going? They were talking about their storytelling conventions, talking about the things that they're doing, the opening of the universe. But how's the show itself? Is it compelling to watch?
Hey,
It's all right.
hey, have you been on the internet treasure hunt to find out how aim, and sword, actually relate to each other? Because it's crazy.
No.
Yeah, see, I mean, that's an example there of the. It's
I mean, I'm
weird.
familiar with both.
I'm not mad at it. And a
Um,
lot of people are, throwing rocks at me just because I'm bringing up these questions of like, what is this? I think it's entertaining on a lot of aspects, but I will clearly say that classic storytelling, this is different. So let's come up with a different word for story, because apparently it's anything on streaming video services that, you know, has characters.
yeah, man. I think yeah, we'll talk more about it. We'll keep checking in on Wanda because it's definitely interesting. I mean, my take on it, real one last take is that I think Marvel heads are, they're brainwashed. I mean, they just love everything Marvel. Marvel can do no wrong. And they've proven themselves over 20, movies. I get it. So it's kind of like it's hard for them to tear away, like, is Marvel, not good anymore. So especially didn't have any movies last year at all or any TV shows from Marvel. So it's going to be interesting to see how Marvel, how WandaVision changes, Marvel, for the better, or maybe diverse or changing the audience for Marvel stories. So it's going to be interesting.
And that's the business play, right?
It is
Ooh.
business, yay! Once again,
Better
just
show me.
winning, just killing them, finish them.
Basically.
So hey, what's going on this week for you, Ben?
This week, hey man, as I said, Black History Month is starting up. Got some projects going on. The 8-bit cubist. So I'm going to be putting out some art. I've been kind of a little quiet on that in the planning phases. So just getting that stuff rolling out. Connecting with all the Black media out there, and just seeing what's going on during Black History Month. I expect some MLK and Martin Luther King posts uh, to show up as people start talking about Black History Month. We'll see how it all plays out, though. It's weirder every year.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I don't mention we lost a couple of legends recently. Hank Aaron passed away recently. Definitely, home run leader, and a Black history icon. And Cicely Tyson, right? She just
Mhm.
recently passed away this weekend. So, definitely two, basically legends in their fields. And so definitely, Black history would be, remiss if we don't mention their contributions to, pop culture, but just in culture in general. So definitely. And I agree. I think, maybe next week we'll probably, maybe we'll spotlight a few, aspects from pop culture and Black history. So we'll think through that next month. But as for me, yeah, just business, heads down with, new opportunities and projects, new clients in the healthcare industry. But on the pop culture side, excited. You gotta check out Snowpiercer, man. I'm telling you, that show is the bomb. I mean, so I'll give Titans a watch, but you gotta watch Snowpiercer
All
because
right, yeah, Snowpiercer's on my list, man, and definitely if you're out there listening, if you have any suggestions, between the two of us, we can't watch everything. So if you find something interesting, something exciting, under the radar, or just your favorite, let us know on Instagram, show underscore versus underscore business, Twitter, show versus business, and Facebook. We're there too. So however you want to communicate best, let us know, and we'll talk to you.
Definitely, I agree, 100%. Yeah, we love to get more. We're probably going to maybe do some interviews with some folks too. Just little blurbs, little 20-minute blurbs and things like that from different perspectives of pop culture. So definitely, we want to get out there more. So Ben, if there's nothing else, thank you everyone for your time today for listening to Show versus Business. This is your weekly take on the business and show from two different perspectives. I'm your host, Theo, and Mr. Benja is on the line as well. Definitely listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts, whether Spotify, look up for us on Instagram, Show versus Business. We'd love to hear from you. If you have anything else, definitely reach out to us. Hey, Ben, if there's nothing else, take care, everyone.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Show versus Business, your weekly take on pop culture. Please subscribe to this podcast at Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Please like and subscribe to our Instagram page, Show versus Business, to get exclusive behind-the-scenes takes and upcoming episodes. Talk to you next time.
Finish him!